Welcome back to the program. This is Checkpoint right here on KTN News, and we're discussing matters IEBC, if they're going to be trusted to conduct a credible election come October 17th. At this moment, the commissioners are at a retreat. They are seeking a common ground stroke position at the end of what has been termed as a very damaging week to the officials there, the anniversary towers. And now, let me start with you, Prof, once again. And there are those who come from the school of thought that, you know, since the court did not find the IEBC chair, Chebukati, culpable of any electoral fraud, then the commission might go ahead and make, a few changes, within the technical team. And let's say if those changes don't affect, among them, the IEBC CEO and other individuals who've been named by NASA. So what will NASA say about it?
It's really up to them to react to whatever decision that is taken. But on my part, what I would like to see is that whatever changes they make should smell of goodwill, should smell of an attempt, a positive attempt to correct however disputable the anomalies were, to make sure they are corrected for purposes of enhancing confidence on both sides. Now, there is a very interesting issue that I raised earlier about whether they are playing alone or there is a tendency to influence them from without.
Yes.
Now, I have no proof that they have been interfered with from elsewhere. But if you listen very carefully, very, very carefully, in my view, a lot of Jubilee supporters talk as if they are employees of IEBC. That creates immediate suspicion. And then NASA talks like, however right IEBC is, they are always sick somehow. Now, this has made IEBC almost a lame duck organization from the point of view that they don't appear independent. They move to the center. They are
the
at
chill
fault.
Of these politicians.
Yes, they move to one side, they are culpable. They move to the other, they are culpable. So my prayer to IEBC is very simple. They should be able to look at each other and look at the mirror and say, look, we are not employees of Jubilee or NASA. We are employees, all right, of the Kenyan voter, all right? Once they make that decision, they say, what do we do for the voter that is also good for the country? If there are cases where it can be shown that certain individuals are stepping away from their mandate, their terms of reference, their internal disciplinary and HR mechanisms for rectifying this. And this one will have nothing to do with Jubilee or NASA.
And I think this is where the memos came from. Do you think the chairman was right to make such a, asking those tough questions?
So the earlier question, first of all, the court ruling never mentioned any person by name, either positively or negatively. What it said was that the elections were not held in accordance with the processes under the law and the constitution. Therefore, go and hold the elections in strict compliance with the law and the constitution. It didn't say the chairman was good or bad. It didn't say the CEO was good or bad or any particular commissioner.
But those who believe the final ruling might have those names.
Yes, we are highly unlikely, but let's wait for it. If say so, then we'll deal with it at that time. Number two, the memos, first of all, the chairman has not owned up to any more memo at this point in time. So what we are all assuming is that actually it is him or the other. And the chairman has the right to, as the chair of the institution, to say A or B or C, whatever critical issues, because it's really up to him and his commissioners and his team to deliver the elections. My issue was that the chairman, a week, 2 weeks earlier, was in court as a specific defendant, as one of the parties to the suit. And the chairman did a very long affidavit that clarified or dealt with very many of the issues, some of which were in the alleged memo. So the chairman had an opportunity, and if the chairman wanted a further opportunity to clarify all these issues, I thought the best way would be to wait for the long form and then to sit down with your commissioners and with your team and in a good faith effort, look to see what you need to change within the short time that you have before the elections.
Prof, if you look at the memo, it seems we are looking at a chairman who is surprised, who has been caught by surprise completely in what has been happening within his commission.
My reaction to that is I am not quite sure whether he's surprised or he's appearing to be surprised. First of all, I want to make the point that first and foremost, if I'm right, the chairman and his team is basically the board of directors. From that perspective, if there is nothing in the law that prevents me from saying that, he is completely within his, his rights to require that information. But my view, and what makes me feel that he's not quite surprised, is that, and I've said this on another program, if IEBC had prepared a framework of activities and divided it into subunits through which they would have a checklist and say in stage A, the preparatory stage, we do this. The next stage, we do this. The casting of the vote is only an activity in a phase of the voting process. All right? That is why I find what my colleague is saying, that the voter was not often. That act alone is not sufficiently to be counted as the voting process. It's just an activity in one particular phase in a process. So from that perspective, the chairman had enough time before the election to ask those questions that he was asking at this time. That's why I said I'm not quite
to be
sure
surprised or not.
Or he's not surprised.
Moving forward, Abdikadir, what is expected of IEBC now? Because for them to win public trust with just 36 days to the elections, what are they supposed to do now, moving forward?
First, the public has given IEBC a lot of trust. I mean, they delivered the other 5 elections, and we have no issues with them. Those people have taken office. Governors are up there working. Senators, including my good friend Senator James Orengo, who was the lead counsel for NASA, is sworn in as a senator. The MCAs are all sworn in. The speakers of the county assembly. So that really shows the public confidence in the product of the IEBC. The next bit is a very difficult. Number 2, one party going to court is part of the process, and the court decision is also part of the process. The fresh election is also part of the process, because the 60-day timeline is given by the Constitution. What we expect IEBC to do is to deliver the election like they delivered the first 5. Number 2 is for the rest of us to support the IEBC.
Yes.
But really, especially those in the political class, to support the IEBC. Because if you have given this institution a very difficult job to do, the least you can then do is to give it support.
And not casting aspersions on it.
In fact, I would like to make it slightly different. The job of the public is to encourage IEBC to clean itself up. What is the problem with IEBC? It's that there are small things and some fairly fundamental ones that require cleaning for IEBC from the very beginning. And that's what I say, Chebukati, who had a chance to clean themselves. Secondly, I do not agree with my colleague that simply because Orengo and the others have been sworn in, that makes the election of everybody else credible and whatnot. It's because the opportunity for these ones to be interrogated the way the controversial presidential one has been interrogated.
And I think the court has made its ruling, and I'm sure you disagree with what the court said, but they clearly indicated that the August, 8th election, the presidential election, was not conducted in accordance with the Constitution. So do you think ultimately somebody must be held responsible?
So on the issue of the politicians, my view is that it's the same politicians who criticize the IEBC. If you are being honest and you actually honestly believe that the elections were not held, the best thing is to step aside and go for another election, if you honestly believe. But you cannot, on the one hand, be criticizing the process that delivered you. On the other hand,
you agree with them.
Benefiting
We've all agreed that it's a highly politicized debate.
So on the issue of the court, I personally have, first of all, the court has spoken, and the president and whoever else has abided by it. So that's not in question. The second is we have very serious issues with the court decision, substantial issues with the court decision.
Yeah.
Again, that is perfectly lawful. Court decisions are there to be criticized or to be disagreed with. The biggest issue I have with it is it seems to have shifted the decision on the elections from the substance of the elections, which is the voters' right to vote, and the substance of the 16 million Kenyans voting, which is the will of the people, to processes. Now, processes are important, so that the Prof doesn't disagree with me.
Yeah.
Processes are very important. But we say process is the handmaiden of substance. It is not more important than substance. Number two, ideally what you then need to ask if there is a problem with process is what was the impact of the problem? Was it large enough to overrun everything else? Now that second question, we didn't see the court say, out of these 16 million, or out of the 1.5 million the president was ahead, how many votes was interfered with by the problems of process? Now, in our constitution, what we have said, because previously process was used to deny rights. Let me give you an example. I have time. One time, one senior lawyer wanted to travel out of the country, and he was denied the ability to travel. He went to court, and our High Court said we cannot give you your rights because the Chief Justice then had not done the rules under which your rights would be enjoyed. Rules are process. So because of our history, we wrote into our constitution that technicalities and processes will not deny you your substantive right. In fact, even in our election issues, the chapter that deals with the elections in the constitution, it's very clear that process is critical, but ultimately the will of the people is the voter.
You've already indicated that everyone has a right to criticize that.
Absolutely.
Prof, as much as you react to that, don't you think it's about time we see, people being responsible, taken, to task, being prosecuted over what happened on August 8th?
You see, one of the tragedies of our political establishment is that people only take responsibility for unfair advantages. When they enjoy an advantage and it's unfairly provided, they are very loud about it. What I believe in, to answer your question, is that we have so many rules, so many laws, and we continue making more. The problem we have is that people are not being punished for offenses they commit outright, that everybody has seen, heard, and witnessed. And people are not being rewarded justly for the good things that they do. Until we reach a point when these two interface and are agreeable to each other, we're in problems. With the specific case of this past election, it is my honest feeling that if there is anything we are going to get from this election, let's punish anybody who played a role, can be demonstrated to have adversely and negatively affected the electoral process, because the country will not be where it is. The losses have been massive. So the answer to your question is yes.
Yes, fantastic. We just have 36 days to go before the rerun. We've seen the opposition threatening to boycott the election if some changes that they won't be made in IEBC is not made in time. And basically, there's a very short time. There's a very limited number of days before the rerun. So, hypothetically speaking, let's say the opposition makes good its threat. And then IEBC takes time before they make those changes within the commission. And we surpass those 60 days. What next?
So first of all, we will not surpass those 60 days. We'll have an election within the next 60 days. Number two,
we might.
Number two, the law as far as the president is concerned is the president is on office until the next president is sworn in. So there is no, on that side. But let me come back to the discussions about what the IEBC should take on board and what should not do. I have been part of political discussions. I have refereed political discussions. I know how those political discussions go. We don't have a long time to do political discussions. We have taken 20 years to set up a constitution. We have taken a long time to set up independent organizations. We just last year kicked an independent organizations because of political agitation. I don't think we have time for political agitation. And in fact, I don't think we have any luxury for political agitation. An election has been called. The same court that called the election said the IEBC should hold elections. It did not say the IEBC minus Chiloba, minus the chairman, or minus Commissioner X. It said the IEBC, as currently constituted, should hold the elections. Let's go for the elections.
In fact,
final questions.
Yeah.
I have separate questions for you.
Yes.
And Prof, you've seen what has been happening this week, political alignment, should I call it realignment. The likes of Isaac Ruto defecting to Jubilee, Paul Otomwa, Fred Kumo. Do you think this will be the game changer this time around?
Nothing. I can tell you nothing. The reason being, are those people, the election itself showed, I'll take Isaac Ruto for example, the election indicated, as my colleague is saying, people were validly elected. It indicated clearly he had no numbers.
Perceptions though.
It indicated, if you look at the figures, they're not figures. If you take them to either side, will make a significant difference.
There are those who might say it's the same case with Munya, who defected.
That is the point that I'm coming to that. I'm not taking one side.
Okay.
I'm taking both sides. That's why I said that in general, if you look at the individual numbers, if you look at Otuoma, he's got a grievance that is deeper than the actual election. And on the ground, you look at the numbers that he commands, I'm not quite sure if they're particularly significant. If you look at all the others, wherever they are, I don't want to go into detail. To me, the bottom line is none of them is likely to significantly turn the tide because the political supporters, the support base of each of the two groups is already established. You can only borrow temporarily some and so forth here and there, but it will not significantly change what is happening. What seems to be the problem on the ground is that there are areas, and this is, I think, what has clouded the discussion. There are areas where you go on the ground, you talk to people, they say they didn't vote this way, but the numbers show they voted that way.
Yes.
You look for the documents supporting the process, they are not there. So that's really what, to me, creates a situation where we need to interrogate certain claims and counterclaims on both sides of the political spectrum. There are clearly, and in my view, there are clearly problems with, somebody must clearly have seen that if you take the narrative that the voter has voted, you can mess up everything else as long as the voter has voted.
Yeah.
I find that difficult to...
Your final question has everything to do with the electoral body. When can we expect, in Kenya to, participate in an election that is, smooth, without any kind of, problems?
Yes. When our politics changes. Because really, the issues are not about the institutions. The issues are about our politics.
Yes.
We have politics that says nobody ever accepts defeat. They are always rigged out. There is always a problem other than the fact that they got fewer votes. Every election will have a winner and a loser. And so long as you don't accept you will be a loser, then it's very difficult to, because then you'll look for an excuse. That's why we kicked out our ECK. That's why we kicked out the IEBC that was led by Hassan Isaac. That's why we are baying for the blood of this current IEBC. Yes. And to the point the Prof talked about, it is not that everything else is not important once the voter voted. It is that what is most important is the voter's vote. And if you look at the totality, if you have not substantially impacted on the voter's vote, don't interfere with it. Because this voter has elected a president. If the voter's election is that substantially the irregularities don't interfere with that vote, don't interfere with the will, because it's not really up to IEBC or even the court. It's not the business of the court to decide for the people. It is the business of the court to interpret that these laws were followed, and if there were imperfections, were they substantive enough to interfere with the will of the people?
I think that will serve as your final comment. Thank you very much, Abdikadir Mohammed. Thank you very much, Prof. Unfortunately, we are out of time. Professor Oyerituma for your input. And that marks the end of our debate tonight here on Checkpoint. But of course, the bulletin continues, and I believe it's about time we cross over to sports. But before that, actually, we're going to take a very short break. But when we come back, we have a lot from the world of sports. Don't go too far. We'll be right back.